Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I thought I'd give you a 6-month update on my 25 litre Walstad Method aquarium. That it's been set up for 6 months now, and quite a bit's changed. Obviously a lot's remained the same, but I thought I'd give you a quick look around it and tell you what's been going on, how everything's been doing, and yeah, hope you enjoy it if you're into your Walstad. The thing we'll notice is that the water levels dropped a little bit. I'm still doing the regular water changes, making sure the KH and the GH is fine, and I keep an eye on the snail shells, to be honest, and look at them, and you know, it seems to be going all right. You know, plenty of water changes, keeping on top of the GH, KH, and the thing I've noticed with this tank is a lot of the Salvinia, I've pulled quite a bit off, but a lot of the floating plants, Salvinia, duckweed, and the Amazon frogbit, they're showing a little bit of nutrient deficiency. So obviously, like I've said in the previous video, that to me is an early warning sign that the nutrients are depleting in the tank. So obviously it's telling me that the plants need a little bit more fish food to sustain themselves, and obviously it needs a bit more waste in the tank. And obviously that's something I'm going to get on top of, keep an eye on, and up the amount of feeding I'm doing, so then obviously the plants are getting more nutrients. But that's your early warning sign, isn't it? Because the floating plants aren't inhibited by the CO2 in the water, because they've got CO2 from the atmosphere, then the only logical conclusion is that the water is a little nutrient deficient, and that we call that the duckweed index. But in general, they seem to be doing well, and since I pulled a load out, the rest seem to be perking up a bit, so must have been out competing each other for a bit of food. But we've got Ludwigia repens, Reuben, growing out the top, and a little bit more here. The section where it's grown out and it's got over the edge of the tank, the air must be drier, and those first few leaves have shriveled up and dropping off. It must be something to do with the moisture content, because the growing tips seem fine. Same on the back one, the leaves above the tank seem fine, and then the ones just as they go over the lip of the tank seem to have shriveled up a little, but then the growing tips look fine again. And then right at the back there we've got a bit of Bacopa coming out, and then there's little bits of Rotala indica and Rotala rotundifolia. Looking at the soil seems to be doing really well. There's tons of plant roots down in the soil. This dwarf sage has been spreading and sending more shoots, roots down into the soil. The soil seems to be maturing really nicely. Obviously I always point this section out here, and then we've got the top section, and then obviously, you know, key part of the Walstad method, the absolute key part of it is we're feeding the tank. The waste coming down here, it's being broken down by the beneficial bacteria, and then the micronutrients are going down into the reservoir, so the plant roots can get the micronutrients down there, and then they get the macronutrients from the fish food. Obviously, like I always say, that oxygenated microzone is critically important to a tank with that little highly oxygenated microzone at the top of the aquatic sediment, like Diana Walstad says in the book, is critical to the health of a dirted tank. So obviously we have to pay attention to this, and that's why I always talk about this 2 inches of sand. It just creates anaerobic conditions down here. You don't get the oxygenated microzone, and you start promoting anaerobics in here, which you don't want, because then you start producing methane, nitrogen gas, nitrous oxide, hydrogen sulfide, and you don't get the production of CO2, which is one of the key parts of the Walstad method, is the natural production of macronutrients, micronutrients, and CO2. Inside the tank we've got, remember the dwarf sage I planted across the front? I pruned all that back, didn't I? And it's growing in, and obviously this tank for me was an experiment, not in the Walstad method, just It's an experiment on setting up a tank and seeing how I'm more interested in to see how the tank matures over the time. So obviously, as I pruned it initially, I've kind of left it alone now and let it grow. There's a little bit of salvinia stuck down there, but the sage is spreading all over the place. Plus, I can't get sage anywhere in my local area, so I thought it'd be nice to grow it out. And if you ever want to pick bits, like there's little bits in the corner like here, and you always get that with like the likes of Val and dwarf sage. They'll be mostly out the water, so you could like get a few bits and you could toss them into the tank, but it's spread right back to the back. And then we've got Rotala iridica at the back, and then in front of it, just here, you've got Rotala rotundifolia there getting up to the surface. There's a few bits of it like at the back that haven't really grown. They've grown like a little bit, and then this stuff's come from the back right the way forward and up. So it's grown what's that, probably a foot away. If you take the distance from the back to the front and from the bottom to the top, it's probably about a foot away. So it's grown in really well. A couple of bits of bacopa. Look at this. There's a scud there. I see adult scuds in this tank quite a lot. I had a scud problem at the time when I set the tank up, and I just took a lot of cuttings of the, obviously I just mentioned bacopa. There's a couple of different types of Ludwigia repens in here. There's a green one at the back, and then there's this one which is more of a Reuben. I got these as cuttings from another tank, planted them in this tank, and there must have been fish eggs on it, and every now and again you see rummy nose rasboras, the Asian rummy nose. Yeah, so you see the Asian rummy nose, and you see adult scuds flying around every now and again in the tank, but you never see any small ones. There's a scud just there. But you never see any juvenile ones, and you never see any buried ones, so hopefully there's another one at the bottom. You can just see it going across the bottom of the screen there. But as I say, I see these all the time. There's a few of them in here, but I never see any babies, any juvenile scuds knocking around, so either they're not breeding and eventually they'll disappear, or the rummy nose rasbora are eating them. Now I do feed this tank regularly, because obviously that's one of the key things from the Walstad method. Perpetually feeding the tank breaks down and releases the macronutrients to feed the plants. Obviously you need nitrogen, you need your phosphorus, and arguably potassium. They're your macronutrients, and obviously your fish food provide them. So regular supply of fish food in this tank, and then maybe they're snacking on the scuds. I don't know. I never see any little ones, so either they're not breeding or the rummy nose rasbora are taking that. There's also a lot of leopard ram's horn snails in here, and they seem to be doing well. They seem to be expanding the population, but I never see any adults. The snails look healthy on them. The shells on the snails look healthy, so that tells me that the KH and the GH should be pretty solid in the tank. So yeah, all good there. Now the back section on here is pretty open. This is where I planted the Ludwigia, and what I found is, as I always warn with stem plants, is the stalks seem to like they drop all the leaves, and then you just end up with this leggy stalk of a stem. But the reason why I planted stems in here is I wanted them to grow up out the top of the tank, which is what I'm achieving. The whole experiment is to see how this tank matures long term. Obviously I've set it up and done all the practice of the Walstad method. I'm doing the regular water changes, feeding the fish. It seems to be going well. I had a little hair algae outbreak for a little while, but that seems to have disappeared. There was only like a few little strands of it, but it's part of maturing a planted tank, isn't it? And it seems to have disappeared, but I'm catching this shot, hoping we can see some rummy nose rasbora in the background. You see them now and again, every now and again they'll dart around, but nothing at the moment. It's really interesting because the plants in this tank, they're planted that heavily that the two fish can go missing for quite a while and turn up. They always hang around at the back anyway, and as I say, I never even intended to add them into the tank. The eggs must have been on the cuttings of the plants, and I've put it in, and everything that's in the tank has come from the cuttings. So if it wasn't for them, if it wasn't from the cuttings, then there would be no sign of life in this tank. So apart from the plants, but it is still fed anyway. I was assuming I'd get snails, but I'd still fed. Just it provides the waste that gets broke down into the micronutrients and the macronutrients, and obviously the mulm drops down into the sediments and is broken down and absorbed by the plant new roots. So all that cycle seems to have kicked off, and it all seems to be doing well. So yeah. So there we go, guys. There's a quick look around, like 6-month update on my 25 litre Walstad tank. What's been going on? Everything seems to be maturing fine, and it just seems to be doing its own thing as long as I maintain the water quality to keep the GH, the KH up, feed the fish food to break the, so it breaks down and feeds the plants. Everything's doing well, and look forward to updating in another 6 months.